Welcome to my channel, friends. I'm truly glad you're joining me today. At this stage in life, many of us find ourselves reflecting a little more deeply about the world we're leaving behind, for our children, our grandchildren, and the generations after them. I don't know about you, but I've noticed the seasons feel different now. Winters aren't quite as cold, summers are hotter, and the weather seems to swing from one extreme to another. After over 70 years of watching the world turn, I can't help but wonder, what can I still do that makes a real difference? That question has been sitting with me for a while now, and it led me to embrace something that I'd never thought much about in my younger years: climate-conscious living. Today I'd like to share with you how I, as a senior, found ways to live more gently on this earth. And I promise you, it doesn't take grand gestures or massive lifestyle overhauls. Sometimes, it just takes a little heart and a little habit. I still remember the very first Earth Day back in 1970. I was in my early 30s with 2 little kids and a head full of questions. People were just beginning to talk about pollution and conservation. There were rallies and newspaper articles and conversations in church halls about saving trees and cutting down waste. It all sounded noble but distant. I didn't have a science background, but I had common sense. We started planting a vegetable garden behind the house, not just to save money but because it felt like the right thing to do. We cut back on meat, not out of principle but because it made sense for the budget and our health. Looking back, those little steps planted seeds, figuratively and literally, that would grow into a lifelong awareness of the world around me. These days, at 76, I look at the climate crisis not with fear but with resolve. I know I can't change everything, but I also know that doing nothing isn't an option. What I've learned is that climate-conscious living isn't just for the young or the tech-savvy. In fact, we seniors bring something special to the table: wisdom, patience, and a long memory of how things used to be. When I started making small changes, I noticed that they weren't just better for the environment, they were better for my soul. One of the first things I did was to take a hard look around my home. Over the decades, I had collected a mountain of things, some useful, many not. I had drawers filled with plastic containers, boxes of old clothes, knickknacks I didn't even remember buying. So I began to simplify. I donated what I didn't need, recycled what I could, and made a promise to myself to stop bringing home things I wouldn't use. These days, I use glass jars to store leftovers, take my cloth bag to the grocery store, and compost vegetable scraps in a bin behind the shed. It's amazing how satisfying it feels to watch my trash can fill up slower and slower each week. Another shift I made was choosing quality over convenience. We grew up in a time when things were made to last. I still use the same cast iron skillet my mother gave me when I got married. It doesn't make sense to keep buying cheap things that fall apart. I've started buying fewer items: clothes, tools, home goods, but I make sure they're well-made, reparable, and ideally from companies that care about sustainability. There's a kind of quiet pride in using a wooden broom instead of a plastic one, or fixing a torn shirt instead of tossing it. Food, too, became part of the journey. I've always loved gardening, and now I see it as an act of climate care. Growing tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, and herbs in my little backyard has become one of my greatest joys. I also started going to the local farmers market, supporting small growers in our area. And though I was a big meat and potatoes guy for most of my life, I've learned to cook more plant-based meals. I still enjoy a good roast on Sundays, but I've come to appreciate lentil soup, grilled veggies, and even tofu stir-fry. It's better for me and better for the planet. Transportation was another area where I made changes. Now that I'm retired, I don't need to drive nearly as much. I walk to the library, take the bus when I can, and even tried out an electric bike last summer. I'll admit it took a bit to get used to, but once I did, it became a real joy. I feel more connected to my neighborhood and, honestly, a lot healthier too. My doctor noticed the change at my last checkup and asked what my secret was. I just told him, less gas, more grass underfoot. I've also come to realize the power of speaking up. Seniors like us often think our time for making waves is over, but I believe our voices matter more than ever. I've written letters to our city officials, joined cleanup days at the park, and talked to neighbors about energy-saving tips. When people see an older adult standing up for the environment, it changes the conversation. We're not just doing it for ourselves, we're showing younger folks that caring for the planet is a lifelong commitment. One thing I didn't expect when I started living more sustainably was how much it would reconnect me with my sense of purpose. Retirement can be freeing, but it can also feel directionless at times. Volunteering for local climate initiatives gave me that sense of mission again. I joined our town's conservation committee and wrote letters to the city council urging them to add bike lanes and protect wetlands. I stood at a podium, nervous but determined, and told a room full of people that we, as seniors, have wisdom that matters. That we've seen more, survived more, and understand how urgent this is. To my surprise, they listened. The bike lane proposal passed. A local paper even interviewed me, calling me a green grandmother. I framed that article and keep it near my desk as a reminder. Your voice still counts. Around the house, I've made some practical updates too. Nothing expensive or fancy, just common sense stuff. I switched to LED lights, added weather stripping to the doors, and with the help of my son, installed a smart thermostat. My heating bill went down and my house feels more comfortable year-round. I also started line drying my clothes again just like we did in the old days. There's something nostalgic and peaceful about seeing fresh laundry flap in the breeze. Money-wise, I've tried to be more intentional about where it goes. I moved part of my savings into ethical investment funds, not because I expect to get rich, but because I want to support companies that are doing good work. I buy from local stores and green businesses when I can. It's not about being perfect. It's about making better choices one at a time. Every dollar we spend sends a message, and I want mine to say, I care about the future. Another thing I've come to value is intergenerational learning. My grandson recently introduced me to an app that helps track carbon footprints. I never imagined I'd be using a smartphone for something like that, but it's actually been a lot of fun and educational. In return, I've taught him how to mend his socks and bake bread without a machine. There's a wonderful give and take when generations connect over sustainability. We can learn from each other in ways that enrich both our lives. I also started hosting little eco-tea gatherings with my friends at the community center. We meet once a month to talk about one green topic, like reusing gray water, natural cleaning recipes, or energy-saving habits. What started as a casual chat turned into something pretty inspiring. We share tips, swap reusable items, and even go on nature walks together. It's become a source of encouragement and accountability, not to mention a lot of laughs. And there's one more thing I've discovered: resilience. As older adults, we've lived through wars, economic downturns, health scares, and more. That resilience is exactly what the climate movement needs. We know how to make do, how to fix things, how to wait and work for better days. Climate-conscious living isn't just about gadgets and rules, it's about attitude, patience, and hope. We've got that in spades. Most of all, what I've found in this journey is joy. Real deep joy. Living in a way that respects the earth has brought me a sense of peace I didn't expect. I wake up feeling more connected to the world, more present in my own life. I've slowed down, simplified, and found purpose in doing things with care. When you live climate consciously, you're not just reducing your footprint, you're enriching your life. Now, if you're listening and thinking, well, that sounds great, but it's too late for me, let me stop you right there. It's never too late. Every change we make, no matter how small, adds up. When my great-grandson asked me if people back in my day knew the earth was in trouble, I told him, yes, and I chose to do something about it. That's the kind of legacy I want to leave, not just stories of the past, but actions that shape the future. Let me tell you something else that really stayed with me. A few years ago, I visited a small town up in Vermont during the fall. The colors were breathtaking. The whole landscape was ablaze with gold and crimson. I struck up a conversation with a young woman running a little coffee shop there. She told me how their town had started a community initiative to reduce waste, composting, shared gardens, even tool libraries where neighbors could borrow equipment instead of buying new. I asked her how it all got started, expecting her to say it was some newfangled nonprofit. But she smiled and said, "Actually, it was my grandfather's idea. He said the old ways were better and we just updated them." That really hit me. Sometimes what we think of as progress is simply rediscovering wisdom we already had, and that we seniors have carried with us all along. That moment reminded me how deeply our actions ripple outward. What we do might seem small in the moment, skipping a plastic bag, turning off lights when we leave a room, planting a native flower bed, but those little acts, done again and again, inspire others to do the same. And before you know it, your quiet effort becomes part of a larger movement. A movement that changes communities, that changes culture, that changes policy. I may never march in another climate rally or write the next big environmental law, but every time I choose to act with care, I'm building something greater than myself. That's powerful. You know, we often talk about leaving behind our possessions in a will, or passing down family heirlooms. But what if the most meaningful thing we could leave is an example? A way of living that honors the earth and shows future generations how to cherish it. What if the heirloom we pass on isn't a piece of jewelry or a stack of bonds, but a backyard garden, a handwritten recipe for natural cleaners, or a well-worn sweater repaired a dozen times? These are the gifts that last, the ones that teach without preaching. My hope, truly, is that by embracing climate-conscious living, we also find a deeper sense of connection to the land, to our families, to our communities, and most importantly, to ourselves. We came into this world before disposable culture took over, before everything was about speed and convenience. We knew a time when you repaired your shoes instead of tossing them, when you turned off the lights as a matter of habit, and when dinner scraps went to the chickens or the compost. We knew how to live slow and live wisely. All we have to do now is remember and teach. So if you're wondering where to begin, start small. Replace paper towels with cloth rags. Reuse the jars your jam comes in. Say no to single-use plastic. Walk instead of drive when you can. Plant something, even if it's just a pot of basil on your windowsill. Call your utility company and ask about green energy options. Get curious again. Ask questions. Experiment. And above all, don't be afraid to learn alongside the younger folks. They've got energy and we've got experience. That's a winning combination. And remember, you don't have to do everything all at once. I sure didn't. It took time. It took a few mistakes. It took a lot of conversations with my family, a little nudging from the grandkids, and a good deal of reading and reflection. But now, looking back, I wouldn't trade this path for anything. It's brought me closer to nature, deepened my friendships, and given me a renewed sense of purpose. It's helped me feel like I'm part of something that truly matters. And that, my friends, is a beautiful thing, at any age. So let's not underestimate ourselves. Let's be the generation that proves it's never too late to change, and that wisdom paired with intention can move mountains. Let's be the ones who show that you don't need to be young to care deeply, act bravely, and live gently. The earth needs all of us, especially those of us who have seen its beauty the longest. Thanks for watching and spending this time with me. I hope my story has sparked something in you, a memory, a new idea, or even just a little encouragement. If you're on this journey too, I'd love to hear what changes you've made. Leave a comment, share your tips, and let's keep learning from one another. And if this video helped you see things differently, go ahead and like it, share it with a friend, and subscribe to the channel. We may have silver hair and a few more wrinkles, but we've still got plenty of light left to shine. Remember, taking care of the earth isn't a young person's game, it's a timeless responsibility.